got a sellout, more than 19,500 here at the Capitol Center in Landover. And the two teams getting ready to square off are the only ones who have ever won ACC championships here, North Carolina and Virginia. They're the matchups, Len Elmore. What do you think is most critical in there?
Well, I think, one, the fact that Virginia is a team that's not prone to turn the ball over. You got John Johnson and Kenny Smith. Kenny Smith is the type of player who disrupts an offense with his quickness, but John Johnson may not have any of that today. Also, you have Drew Kennedy playing Dave Popson, who, of the three frontline players for Carolina, may not be the biggest offensive threat, and Kennedy is needed on the offense for Virginia.
Although Popson was yesterday with a career-high 23 points, and Virginia will have the ball the first time. Morgan tries to get it underneath to Sheehy, knocked out of bounds by Popson, who hustled back on defense. John Johnson has done a superb job for Virginia as running the ball club. That's Andrew Kennedy, who had a big game yesterday, had 22 points, and he has the first two. And here's the first steal.
Well, Virginia's got that great inside defense. They get their hands up in the passing lanes. Very few times you're going to be able to feed the post from outside.
Sheehy guarded by Reed. They'd like to get Sheehy off quickly, as they'd like to do the same with Mel Kennedy, who missed there.
A little tentative by Mel Kennedy. Recognized he had the shot, the double pump.
He has not shown the same kind of intensity that he did in the first couple of years in the league. And nobody can seem to figure out why. J.R. Reed's turnaround jumper. Andrew Kennedy with a rebound. Ball knocked out of bounds. It's out to Virginia.
It's interesting. A lot of people think that it may have been a jump ball, and Dean Smith is over there signaling jump ball. I guess the rule is you have to have your hand on the ball and have such control that it cannot be wrested away without using excessive force. And that time, maybe Dave Popson just didn't have his hand there.
There's a look at Virginia's tournament history. It's the most memorable one, and there's a look at Carolina. It's the most memorable one, of course, for Virginia was right here in the Capitol Center 11 years ago. Johnson. Morgan is posting up Lebo inside. Johnson to Sheehy. Morgan tipped it in. Richard Morgan can really rebound at 6'3".
He's the kind of big guard that will give Kenny Smith trouble. That time he was playing Kenny Smith, switched off.
Mel Kennedy's going to be called for a hold. Grabbed a hold of J.R. Reed on the way across the lane.
Well, here's a jumper by Sheehy. He's in good shape from the corner, a little bit off. And there's Morgan. It was difficult. Jeff Lebo actually was the one attempting to block Morgan out. Richard Morgan did a good job of forcing Lebo under the basket.
Morgan's averaging 3.5 rebounds a game, and that's from somebody who was not playing full time for a while.
And I don't know if the people at home saw this, but Jeff Lebo attempted to come off a pick, and Tom Sheehy was exerting his usual presence there.
Wolf didn't get the roll. Popson tried to keep it alive, but it was Drew Kennedy. Gets it out to Johnson. Sheehy wide open. Fake the three-pointer to Andrew Kennedy. Short, the rebound to Reed.
Kennedy wasn't set that time. He was almost falling away from the basket.
Kenny Smith for three, and Carolina scoreless through the first 2 minutes of the ball game.
And this, Mike, is what I mean by recognizing tempo. John Johnson knows that he doesn't want to get into a racehorse type of game with Carolina. That time they may have had a break opportunity, but he pulled it out.
Mel Kennedy on the drive. Offensive foul, Mel Kennedy. That's his second.
The only problem is John Johnson has got to communicate that to the rest of his teammates. Here, Kennedy drives into a crowd here, something that is not within Virginia's game plan. They want to move the ball around and isolate Mel Kennedy or Drew Kennedy, but they also want him to get some good shots, and I believe that's what Terry Holland is speaking to Mel about at this moment.
Mel Kennedy really upset. He's out of the ball game with only 2 minutes and 11 seconds off the first half clock. Bill Batts, the redshirt freshman out of South Euclid, Ohio, is in there. And Batts is a story in himself, Lenny. He's done a great job for Virginia last 10-12 ball game. Reed gets Carolina's first two.
Well, Carolina's smart. They know a guy comes right off the bench. He may not be totally warm, even though it's not much of a difference from warm-ups to the game. But Batts isn't in the game yet, and they went right at him.
Johnson guarded by Kenny Smith. Knocked away and stolen by Lebo. And will be tied at 4.
Now, Mike, it's early, but those are the types of turnovers that Virginia definitely wants to avoid, the type where they just give Carolina a particular opportunity. That time, Richard Morgan kept coming to the ball instead of going back door.
Bill Batts used the glass and puts the Cavaliers back ahead. Lebo in a hurry. Boy, Carolina pushes it all the time. Lebo tried a prayer. Tipped out to Johnson. 3-on-1. Morgan. Here comes Lebo the other way. Popson. And Morgan with a silly foul. He had no chance to stop David Popson. And he'll give him a shot at a three-point play.
Well, I tell you, Virginia here coming on the break lost the ball, and Carolina gets the ball back. Dave Popson as a trailer didn't get back in time, so he was it enabled him to cherry pick more or less. But I tell you what happens. Virginia, in taking the quick shot, opens themselves up if they miss for that type of break. Carolina left a man behind, Popson, who drove to the basket, and then Richard Morgan compounds the situation by attempting to stop a dunk.
Popson, as are most of the Carolina starters, excellent free throw shooters, but he misses this one.
Sure your name's not Marty Brenneman?
We all play-by-play guys seem to jinx free throw shooters, don't they?
I gotta tell you, they're gonna have to keep you guys quiet.
All we have to do is compliment somebody. Loose ball, Johnson comes up with it, tries to penetrate, kicks it off to Drew Kennedy, and now we'll reset.
Although the clock doesn't reset.
No. Sheehy got away from Reed to Andrew Kennedy. Back out to Johnson again. The shot clock is down to 13 seconds. They are not above the backboards here as they are in other arenas. They're set off to the side, and Johnson checked it. Came down with a couple of seconds left and buried the jumper.
John Johnson historically has had great luck against Carolina, particularly against Kenny Smith.
Joe Wolf for three. Excellent outside shooter. And he's been taking a lot of those in recent weeks, hitting more than 50%, but that one doesn't go.
Let's go back to Bill Batts for a second. On that rebound, he did a great job of blocking out J.R. Reed, and he's not about to be intimidated by J.R.'s reputation nor his ability. He's doing a great job inside so far.
Sheehy, great pass, and Batts will get two.
That's the type of spark that Virginia needs. Someone comes off the bench and gives them that type of lift. Batts doing it on both ends.
4 points for Bill Batts and a 4-point lead for the Cavaliers. Reed knocked away by Batts and ahead to Johnson. Did a great job of controlling the ball and reversed the layup.
And that's what I mean by John Johnson always knowing where he is on the court. Not only was he able to control that dribble, but he knew exactly where the Carolina defenders were, and he used the basket to shield them from them.
Cavaliers doubling North Carolina's early points. Sheehy gets a reach-in foul against Wolf. That's the 4th team foul against Virginia in the first 5 minutes.
And here's a good example of Batts on defense. Again, he lost contact with Reed, made a good deflection. The ball was outletted to Johnson. And here Johnson, knowing where the Carolina defenders are, used the basket to shield himself from their attempts to block that shot.
Wolf, better than an 80% free throw shooter, will go to the line. And Dean Smith goes to the bench for the first time. Ranzino Smith is in for Jeff Lebo. Wolf will get 2 shots.
Mike, I was speaking to Mac Calvin before the game today, and Mac indicated that they've always been under the at least idea that if they can keep Carolina in a close ball game till the last 3 minutes, they feel that they can take it. For some reason, I don't know, he thinks it's because his team is looser, but that remains to be seen. They're playing against a tough ball club.
The hard part is keeping it close against Carolina until you get to the last 3 minutes. Timeout on the court. It's a 4-point game. The announcers for this game are approved and selected by Raycom Sports, Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, duplication, or reception without the express written permission of Raycom Sports, Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions is prohibited. Our score 12-8, Virginia over North Carolina. 14:45 to go in the first half of play. Second round, the semifinals of the ACC. Some of the statistics in the early going. Both teams shooting reasonably well. Virginia at 60%.
Mike, right now Carolina is subbed up. They got Ranzino Smith, Williams, and Steve Bucknall, and they're probably the better defenders on this team, with Williams being a great shot blocker, as we saw there.
He got a piece of Andrew Kennedy's shot. Williams has played very well in the last couple of weeks for North Carolina, really coming on strong, and Joe Wolf cuts it to 2.
Well, Williams has come in, and he's trying to neutralize that spark that Bats gave Virginia. That time he makes a nice move to the basket and finds Joe Wolf inside for an easy turnaround.
Johnson got by Ranzino Smith, and he'll take his own jumper. Here comes Kenny Smith on the break for the Heels. Bucknall rarely looking for that shot outside of 15 feet. Wolf. 12, a 6-point run for Carolina.
Well, right now, that's 4 points in a row in the paint for Carolina. They've inserted 3 new players, and they've gone back to their game plan, and that's to get it into the big fellas. Joe Wolf with 2 straight jump shots.
Sheehy guarded by Bucknall, who's an outstanding defender. Good pass to Bats. Put a high arc on it. He kept it alive, and Bats now has 6 points off the bench.
Bill Bats is the man on the money right now for Virginia. He's doing a good job of getting position inside on the boards. He knows that's his job, and he doesn't watch the flight of the ball. He doesn't worry about shooting the ball from the inbounds pass or the entry pass.
And we've got a foul away from the ball. This one's going to go against North Carolina. 3-second violation. Mel Kennedy, who went out early, picked up 2 quick personal fouls, and now they want him back in the ball game. And let's see who comes out. It's going to be Andrew Kennedy. He'll get a breather.
Terry Holland, I guess, is trying to offset the substitutions by Dean Smith and rest some of his key people.
And this is the last time they met in the tournament, 1982, for the championship. One of those games a lot of people said was the reason they got a shot clock in college basketball.
Well, I'd imagine Virginia would love to keep the game in that vicinity.
Yes. Morgan to Johnson, loose ball. Sheehy, good hustle to track it down. Pulls up and hit it.
Well, Sheehy did a smart thing. He saw J.R. Reed was straight up on defense. He put it on the floor and got head and shoulders past Reed on the baseline. You can't play a guy handling the ball if you're standing straight up.
Curtis Hunter, number 43, into the ball game for the first time for Dean Smith. So it's Kenny Smith, Ranzino Smith, Curtis Hunter, J.R. Reed, and Thompson on the floor for the Heels. Kenny Smith, good move to get by, and then kicks it back to Reed. And this foul is going to go against Curtis Hunter over the back drag for the rebound. That's the first team foul against North Carolina in 8 minutes of play in the first half.
Mike, you can't say enough so far of the way Virginia, except for maybe a couple lapses, has done a good job of playing interior defense. They're keeping the ball from being passed around inside, and they're also crowding a lot of the players, forcing J.R. Reed outside. Here comes that trap. Not successful this time. Morgan's wide open, wants the ball for 3. Richard Morgan. You can't tell me Terry Holland wasn't listening to Lefty Driesell. At least Richard Morgan was.
It's 19-12. Cavaliers with their biggest lead. That's a tip in by Wolf. He came very, very close to being in the cylinder. Megan Hobson very close to being in the cylinder on that one. Well, the whole Virginia bench stood up. Even Tom Sheehy hesitated taking the ball out of bounds, expecting a call. That's a very difficult call to make, too. You have to look at invisible lines. Mel Kennedy sort of shoved it up and missed it. Right, Mel is a little tight out there and somewhat tentative. He's the guy that they need right now offensively. Ranzino Smith, Johnson on him. Lebo. Reed wants the ball, working hard inside for it. Bat's doing a good job denying. Curtis Hunter lost it on the way up. Take a look and see if this last play that we had was goaltending. Well, the shot is taken. You see it go up. This is the angle that the outside official has. Oh. And from here, it looked pretty close, considering where the hand was. We've got a timeout with 10:46 to go in the half. Virginia 19, North Carolina 14. Back in a moment. Take a look at some of last night's results in case you missed them. In the Big East, Pitt a winner over Seton Hall. Syracuse advances. Georgetown had trouble but got by. And Providence clobbered St. John's. In the Metro, also results from yesterday. Memphis State, South Carolina, Southern Miss, and Louisville gets the bye, so they advance. Southeastern quarterfinals, Georgia a winner, Florida upset by LSU. Auburn knocked Kentucky out of it, and Alabama beats Tennessee. And we'll keep you up to date as other things go on this afternoon around the rest of the country. Virginia basketball, the Cavaliers up by 5. They beat the trap again. That defense has not been much of a problem so far, Len.
Well, I tell you, they know that Virginia's handled it well in the past, and what Carolina's trying to do now is use it just to change the tempo somewhat. They're not going to use it really to affect any type of turnover unless they're given a couple.
Johnson can't hit it. Good rebound to Joe Wolf.
That's an example of changing the tempo. Virginia that time opted for the outside 18-footer, something that they probably don't want to do. They want to get in closer for the 10-footer.
Ranzino Smith with a long shot. Mel Kennedy with a rebound. Ranzino wasn't even close to the three-point line that time.
But he's a shooter, and he's the type of guy that needs a shot like that to get him off.
Sheehy and Lebo on the run with a rebound.
For Virginia right now, somebody's going to have to recognize that this is not their tempo. They've got to explore that Carolina defense. Carolina can afford it because they got the horses inside.
Reed got that one in good position. He couldn't hit it. Sheehy working hard inside.
John Johnson heard me. Taking his time.
May have heard the same thing from Terry Howell. Drew Kennedy will check back in for Virginia at the next opportunity. Kenny Smith and Scott Williams also over there waiting to get back in the ballgame for North Carolina. Morgan just inside the line. Air ball. And Mel Kennedy got it.
Well, Mel Kennedy was in the right place at the right time. Usually when a shooter shoots from the corner, the ball comes off on the other side if he's aiming for lofting it over the front rim. Usually they're going to be long and they're going to go off on the other side. Mel Kennedy was right there.
Sheehy knocked it away from Wolf. It's a 3-on-4 fast break. Morgan. And Virginia streaking, leading at 23-14.
Well, you get the ball in the hands of the shooter. Richard Morgan shot virtually an air ball the last time, but he's a shooter. He wasn't about to be denied. Looks like a little Carolina frustration. Ranzino Smith underneath the basket was called for a foul.
And they're talking to Tom Sheehy underneath because Sheehy thinks he's been fouled the last 3 or 4 times they've set up for an offensive play. And now talking to J.R. Reed. Reed and Sheehy have exchanged stares and some physical contact in the last few trips, and the officials doing a good job trying to calm it down.
There's a crowd underneath there. It was Reed, Ranzino Smith, and I believe it was Smith and John Johnson.
So Ranzino Smith picks up his first foul. They'll take Sheehy, put him on the bench, and let him cool down a little bit maybe, and at least give him a breather too.
Again, something like that points up the frustration right now. Carolina not accustomed to being behind at this point in the game, but they're a fine team. They've gone in 4 or 5 times during the regular season behind at the half only to come on to victory, so they're not about to give up.
Well, they're down 11 right now with 8:37 to go in the first half. An outstanding first half performance by Virginia. They are playing better today than they played yesterday against Georgia Tech.
Well, I tell you, Virginia's man-to-man now, again, is sagging, peeling back to help out. That time, there's a man in the corner, and J.R. Reed was on the block. Richard Morgan, rather than play his man tight in the corner, dropped into the passing lane at the last moment and forced that errant pass because it forced the Carolina player to throw it away from his teammate.
Here comes the trap. Sims into the ball game. They beat it again. Virginia's done a nice job against that pressure.
They're not panicking. They're not holding the ball in the air. They're trying to break through that double team.
Good steal by J.R. Reed. And look at this kid move. Smith back to Reed. Lost it on the way up, and he's fouled. And the foul will be on Bill Batts.
But JR is an athlete, and he's the kind of guy, his favorite defensive play is to lose contact like there and step out and anticipate the pass. And then from there, you know, he makes like Charles Barkley taking the ball and leading the break here.
Foul on the way up. 15 foul against Virginia. Number 1 on Bill Batts. And there's a good look at the redshirt freshman.
You know, the fine thing about players like J.R. Reed, or 6'9", 6'10", and can handle the ball, is they had the benefit of high school coaches who didn't stereotype them and say, well, you have to stay here on the block and play offense, or you have to block shots. They allowed them to do whatever their athletic ability allowed them to do and play to their potential. And that's what's made J.R. such a fine player today.
Going to be a dominant player in the ACC. Got 8 minutes even to go in the first half, and it's 25-16 Cavaliers. Sheehy from Johnson, and now back to John Johnson.
What Virginia players are doing against this press is they're catching the back guys who look for the double team, catching them in no man's land, and their teammates are getting into the open area and allowing their ball handler to hit them.
Mel Kennedy with the Cavaliers, guarded by Wolf. Comes the trap again. They get it to Johnson. Johnson dribbles out of trouble. Shot clock down to 10. Sims tried to use the glass. Mel Kennedy, big rebound.
Well, I think Mel Kennedy has settled down now. He's not as anxious as he was before. When you have problems shooting, what you got to do is work on the other parts of your game. Mel Kennedy decided to go to the offensive boards, and the last 2 trips down, he's been a force.
Scott Williams got loose inside. They knocked it away from him. Out of bounds off of North Carolina.
Here's a shot by Sims, and you'll see Mel Kennedy come from the other side. Gets good rebound position. That time, Joe Wolf had no clue of where he was.
North Carolina wants to talk about it. Down by 11 with 7:06 to go. We'll be right back after these words from Natural Light.
This Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament game is an exclusive presentation of Raycom Sports and Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions.
Let's take a look at some of the other scores from yesterday in the Big 8 tournament. Kansas State over Nebraska, Missouri a winner, Kansas and Oklahoma also winners in the first round. Southwest Conference, Texas Tech, TCU an upset victim, Baylor wins, and Houston knocks Texas off. And in the Pac-10, their first tournament ever, California a winner, UCLA as expected, Washington and Oregon.
Bad lob by Sheehy.
J.R. Reed lost it inside, tried to dribble into traffic, and Virginia with an 11-point lead in the ball with 6:53 to go in the half.
Can't put it on the floor in there. Virginia's such a fine interior defensive team. They probably have to be that way because they don't have the dominant big guy inside.
Andrew Kennedy back in the ball game. Sims and Johnson working in the backcourt. Offensive foul on Andrew Kennedy.
Well,
off inside.
Sometimes that happens, Mike, when you get a mismatch. That time Lebo had switched off onto Kennedy because Williams was outside playing Derek Sims. And what happened was Kennedy knew he had the mismatch and he wanted to establish good position. Lebo fought him all the way.
Terry Holland up with that glaring smile looking at official Dick Paparo, who called the foul underneath. There's the rebound story. The Cavaliers doing a nice job. An offensive rebound have been the biggest part of it, and Sheehy will be called for the foul. Number 2 on Tom Sheehy. North Carolina will now be in the bonus.
But I tell you, here's another reason J.R. is such a mature player. Watch his right arm. He held Sheehy off long enough to make the contact, still was allowed to receive the ball. Again, he used that right arm to hold Sheehy off. A lot of people will call that a foul, but most big men are taught you got to spread out if you're going to receive. And J.R. held the contact with his strength with one hand and received the ball and spin all in one motion, and that's a great move.
No doubt that he's strong, 244 pounds, and he doesn't look nearly that heavy. That's because it's muscle. 27-17, 27-18, and Reed has become a much better free throw shooter as the season has gone along, too. Johnson against the trap. Got it to Kennedy. Sims.
I'll tell you, Mike, Virginia refuses to be sucked into moving, picking up the tempo. Even though they had a 3-on-1 break, they didn't take it.
Sheehy, nice fake to get the shot inside. Good ball fake, and Scott Williams came over and caught him on the arm. Number 1 on Williams. It's only the third team foul against North Carolina.
Here the ball is inbounded, well, not inbounded, but thrown inside to SHEEHEY, who turns, looks at the defense, which a lot of people don't do, and then decides to make this move. He takes what the defense gives you, and that may be the key to Virginia's success against Carolina.
Hope you'll be with us near the end of our ball game as we'll be choosing a player from each team as the Holly Farms player of the game. SHEEHEY hits the first free throw. He has another coming, and the lead is back into double figures at 10. 3 points for SHEEHEY.
Well, Mike, I think Coach Smith is recognizing that a lot of these defenses aren't bothering Virginia very much.
And then SHEEHEY, maybe out of frustration or bad timing or whatever, tried to follow his own miss and just spread himself all over J.R. Reed for his third foul.
Not a whole lot you can say except why. If you miss a free throw like that, you don't jeopardize your team by getting in foul trouble. SHEEHEY had no hope of getting that rebound. And again, the question is why? Why would you do something like that, Tom?
Well, he's sitting down right now. I have a chance to ponder the question for a few minutes. 6:03 to go in the half. Reed at the line has hit all 4 free throws earlier. Now make it 5 in a row.
So that's one of those situations that you call them gift points.
Yeah.
And those are the things that Carolina will capitalize on day after day, and you don't want to give them to them. That's part of playing the perfect game. Don't give Carolina anything because they're too darn good. They get their own anyway.
That's right. They don't need any help. They'll beat you whether you help them or not most of the time. John Johnson brings his club up. 8-point lead. Here's the trap again and again. John Johnson finds a way to beat it. And Bill Batts did a nice job coming out to get the ball.
And that's the open spot against that pressure.
Morgan forced that one up. Reed got the rebound and traveled.
Well, I'll tell you, though, despite the fact that J.R. Reed traveled, Carolina had that board covered well. If you watch, the shot is taken, and watch the Carolina players. Good block out. 3 guys around that ball. The only problem is J.R. came off and tried to spin and start that break instead of getting possession.
Mel Kinsey forced it up from the baseline. The tip won't go by Batts. Batts and Lebo tie up. And then try to hurl each other around the dance floor.
Well, the arrow's pointing towards Carolina, but Bill Batts is going after everything he can get his hands on today.
Surprising how a lot of kids, freshmen and redshirt freshmen, sometimes even sophomores, about 2/3 of the way through that year, they really start to learn how to play the game in this conference, and Batts is an example of that. Kenny Smith, he was on the line. It's a 2-point shot. Joe Forte right on top of it, saw he had his foot there.
Well, again, that's another one of those points where Virginia took a bad shot. Mel Kennedy took that corner shot with 3 guys on him. Carolina gets possession, and they come down and capitalize.
Kenny Smith just scored his first 2 points of the ball game. Right now, 4:49 to go in the first half. Basket counts as Drew Kennedy hits the bucket. He'll have a chance for a 3-pointer.
Now, a lot of people don't realize that that was a heck of a shot. Not only did Kennedy get the rebound and fake, but his patience. He waited and waited until Wolf finally left his feet, then made the contact, and he did it all without walking.
First foul on Joe Wolf. Drew Kennedy with 4 points. Make it 5, and Virginia has the lead back to 9. Coming into this tournament, I thought Virginia was playing as well, considering the amount of talent they have versus North Carolina, as any one team in the ACC.
Well, they're playing with a great deal of confidence right now, and you hear a lot of people say confidence is a great deal of this game.
Kenny Smith missed that one. Andrew Kennedy with a rebound. Cavalier fans are loving it here in the first half at the Cap Center. John Johnson. And they'll kick it back outside to Morgan. Good ball movement to get it to Kennedy. Kennedy walk.
Mel Kennedy a little anxious again. His eyes open wide when he saw that lane down the middle and dragged that foot just a bit. But Virginia still is moving the ball well. They recognize when they don't have the shots. Carolina, by the way, is playing good defense now. You can't take that credit away from them. But Virginia's still being very, very patient.
Mark Cook, number 31, will check into the ball game for the first time for the Cavaliers. He's down on Scott Williams. And Williams comes up short on the jump hook. Got it back somehow. Missed the follow. Lebo for three.
Good quickness, Jeff Lebo getting to that ball, and that's something in the last meeting between Carolina and Virginia that Carolina wasn't able to connect on, and that was three-point shots. They were 1 for 13 going into that overtime, but they finally came out with the victory.
31-25. There's Morgan. Had that partially blocked by Williams, who's done a whale of a job when he's been in there. Kenny Smith. Lebo for three. Line drive on that one a little bit, and Morgan rips it away. Well, Richard Morgan really wears his emotions on his face. You can tell when he's upset, and you can tell when he's happy. And right now, he's upset.
But he's always intense, though.
Indeed.
You can look in his eyes and see that.
Johnson back to Morgan. Drew Kennedy over Wolf. Andrew Kennedy has 7 points.
In order to appreciate an Andrew Kennedy, you got to look at the little things that he does.
Joe Wolf for three. You follow Carolina basketball this year, you know he's an outstanding long-range shooter. Just does not do it. By Lebo before he got the shot. You know, Len, it looks like the tempo is picking up a little bit, and that would be to Carolina's advantage.
Oh, no question, and I think it's picking up, as you say, gradually, and it may be hard for the players out on the floor to recognize that. I think at this timeout, Terry's going to speak to his players about this.
2:34 left to go in the first half. It's a 5-point Virginia lead. 33-28, Virginia over North Carolina. First half. We hope you'll stay with us at halftime because Paul Cameron will be announcing another winner in our Pepsi New Generation contest. 2:34 left. Virginia shooting almost 47% from the floor. Carolina about 41%. And Virginia is actually outscoring North Carolina inside 19-14.
And that's definitely a flip on the game plan, particularly when the Carolina has a decided advantage inside. But that's a tribute to that good inside defense by Virginia.
Johnson will reset the offense. Johnson is in there with Cook, Andrew Kennedy, Morgan, and Bill Batts.
Carolina's come out with a new look on defense. They've decided to go to their 1-3-1 type of zone defense. They usually do it on out-of-bounds plays, but it's a good change of pace. Virginia had been playing against that man. They've gotten themselves in a rhythm. Now they have to face something else.
Right now, they're just tossing the ball around the perimeter of that zone. Shot clock is down to 11 seconds. Johnson checks it. Shot clock's at 6, and Johnson inside the three-point line threw up a brick that time. On the floor, bodies everywhere. We're going to have a jump ball situation. Possession arrow gives it to Virginia.
Good hustle by both Scott Williams and Bill Batts. They both went down on the floor, and it's heartening for me to see these guys go down and get a few floor burns. Shot comes off. I mean, that's a kind of a brick there. But the players recognized the ball as it came down on the floor. They probably couldn't have gotten it as it came off the rim because it didn't hit the rim. But they went after it.
Well, you got to like Batts and Williams. I mean, they just went right down there on the floor. J.R. Reed on the North Carolina bench with a minute 48 to go in.
Well, that wasn't John Johnson's shot either. But they got the clock down too low to where they couldn't do much of anything.
Morgan was sort of a lazy inbounds pass, and Scott Williams got a hand on it.
And this is the point in time when you really have to be careful with Carolina. You can play well, but they will spurt at the end of the half.
Lebo, great drive. 33-30.
I tell you, Jeff Lebo, he plays a quiet game, but he's the type of guy that won't do more than he's capable of doing. He'll always find his opening and always find a good shot.
Johnson, good penetration, kicks it back to Morgan. This is for 2. Richard Morgan makes it a 5-point Virginia lead, and Morgan is in with 9 points in the first half. Down to a minute 6 to go. Wolf will try another three-pointer and hit another one.
Well, I'll tell you, Drew Kennedy is going to have to get up on Joe Wolf and make him prove that he can put the ball on the floor. He's already proven he's a great standstill jump shooter, and you can't give him that type of shot.
Joe Wolf has 12 points, the leading scorer in the ball game. Shot clock shows 31 seconds. The game clock, as you see, ticking away. Johnson forced it up, and they'll call a foul on Scott Williams as he got the block. 2 on Scott Williams.
Well, I tell you, John Johnson was bailed out on that
Yes,
one.
he was.
But he drove in. He drove in with the intent to dish off the bats, knowing that Williams was going to go to penetration. Couldn't find Bill Batts, and he tried to get the ball up. Just couldn't get it over the outstretched hands of Williams, but Williams committed the foul.
Williams will go to the bench with 2 personal fouls. That's the one thing John Johnson did so much early in the year. He'd get caught up in the air with no place to go, and he has done a much better job of not doing that later in the year. Missed the free throw.
You didn't even say it.
No, I didn't. I'm getting gunshot.
But I tell you what happens, though, sometimes you can draw and dish, and what that means is that the ball handler will actually drive into a crowd to draw his defensive help and then dish off to his teammate, and it makes you look bad when your teammate doesn't move to the open position, because then you're forced to shoot.
Or just take a big bite out of it. Missed both free throws, but good hustle inside by Andrew Kennedy, and he got the rebound. Virginia can now hold for the last shot, leading by 2 points.
Well, Virginia has to be obviously happy at the way this has turned out in the first half. Carolina, you know they're going to make a surge, and they came back from that deficit.
Morgan for 3. They didn't hold it anywhere near for the last shot. Carolina comes back in a hurry. Thompson forced one from long range. That's out of his range. Reed got a hand on it, and there's the buzzer.
Well, Mike, I tell you, Virginia's celebrating as they run off the court, but they forget this game is played in 2 halves. Again, they have to be happy, and they also recognize that they withstood to a great extent that Carolina surge at the end of the first half. The one thing they're going to have to watch out for is that Carolina's deadly coming out in the second half.
Virginia with an outstanding effort in the first half after 20 minutes of basketball here at the Capitol Center. The Cavaliers leading North Carolina Tar Heels 38-33. The first half of tonight's game is brought to you in part by Food Line and by Goodyear. We'll be back at the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland for the ACC tournament right after this.
This exclusive live coverage of the 1987 Atlantic Coast Conference Basketball Tournament from Raycom Sports and Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions is brought to you by Piedmont Airlines, Hayes Microcomputers, Central Fidelity, Pepsi, Goodyear, Winn-Dixie, NCNB, Budweiser, the Jefferson Pilot Company, Mazda, and by South Carolina National Bank.
Our score here at halftime at the Capitol Center. Virginia leading North Carolina 38-33. We've got 20 minutes of basketball left in the first semifinal of the ACC tournament. And Len, the one thing that strikes me a little bit differently from yesterday when Maryland played North Carolina in the opening round, Maryland with no bench was obviously getting tired at the end of the first half. They came out in the second half and were very tired. Carolina just pulled away. Now then, Terry Holland made very good use of his bench in the first half, trying to give his starters a little bit of a breather so they'd be fresh for the second 20.
Well, he got a great pick-me-up from Bill Batts, who came in and did a great job. He scored 6 points, got 5 rebounds, and that's the type of thing that you need. Yep. Eric Sims came in and played pretty good defense. The story that I think is important is the fact that inside, Carolina is known for their offensive rebounding. They haven't done a very good job.
Let's take a look at our Piedmont halftime stats, and we'll show you how it all breaks down. And shooting, Virginia shooting almost 50% from the floor. Pretty good, really, for both ball clubs. The three-point field goals, the Cavaliers have only taken 2, but they made both. And the rebounding story, Virginia out-rebounding North Carolina 19-15. That's probably the key one overall.
Well, there are 6 offensive rebounds in those 19 rebounds for Virginia. That's what Virginia needs, those second opportunities. On the other hand, they've gotten 10 turnovers from Carolina, and that's pretty good for Virginia's defense.
Individually, Richard Morgan, the streak shooter, is 5 out of 9 and has 12 points. If he has another big second half, the Cavaliers will give North Carolina all it wants and more. And inside, Virginia has outscored North Carolina. Another surprise.
Well, I tell you, though, their Carolina big men are not one-dimensional. You got Joe Wolf, Dave Popson going outside sometimes. Joe Wolf has got 12 points with 4 for 6 shooting, but that big three has still combined for 7 to 13 shooting. So they're doing the job. They're just not doing it inside. They're shooting outside.
That's right. Good-looking part of the crowd and the color here at the Capitol Center. It's always one of the great days in sports, the ACC semifinals. And it's been a fine opening half, especially for the Cavaliers, who lead at 38-33. They lost both regular season games, remember. They lost 95-80 and then 74-73 in overtime. We'll keep track of the foul situation, too. Tom Sheehy with 3 personals for the Cavaliers, and they go to work on him right away. Wolf short on the jumper. Johnson claims the rebound.
Well, this is the point in time that all teams fear against Carolina. Carolina really steps up their defensive pressure at this point in the game. They want to extend their defense, get some easy buckets, and create some turnovers so that they can breathe a little easier. Here they're 5 points down, so they've got to catch up.
Mel Kennedy with that almost a shot put kind of style on his shoot, on his shooting touch.
It's a New York leaner.
Wolf for 3. Joe Wolf has hit 3 out of 4 3-point shots, and he has 15 points.
Tom Sheehy, again, he and Andrew Kennedy, they play Joe Wolf outside. You got to put a hand up, but more importantly, you have to get up into his chest, make the guy put it on the floor. You know he can shoot outside.
Morgan to Mel Kennedy. Sheehy got it inside Reed. Triple team and still hit it.
Good move by Tom Sheehy. He's got to come alive inside now offensively for Virginia. They need another offensive outlet here besides Drew Kennedy and Richard Morgan.
Sheehy averaging 11.5 points a game, has 5 right now. Reed gets it inside over Mel Kennedy. Big height advantage there.
And Mel Kennedy did about the best job you can do. Had his hands up, forced JR to take the jump shot from 10 feet, but JR's got a great touch.
Mel Kennedy 6'5", J.R. Reed listed at 6'9". Morgan got by Lebo, lost it on the way up though.
Well, he was going to really dribble in the problems right there, and the ball was deflected. Here, JR again, good strong post up. Mel realizes that he's in a lot of trouble. What he does is puts his hand in JR's face, trying to bother the shooter, and that's about all you can do short of fouling.
Now the officials reversed their decision and gave the ball back to Virginia. Piece of good officiating there as they consulted with each other. Sheehy has 7.
Sheehy has definitely done a great job of recognizing the defense. He turns and faces, sees where everyone is, then he decides what to do.
This is Popson, Kenny Smith. Long-range shot. Morgan with a rebound. Ahead to Johnson. It's a 2-on-2. Sheehy over Lebo. And Tom Sheehy has hit his last 3 shots. And Virginia's lead goes back to 6.
That's a pretty tough shot for the big guy to stop on a dime on the break and put up the soft bank shot.
Sheehy now has 9, 6 of them in the second half. Wolf with Kennedy on him, and now Kenny Smith. Nobody switched, and Kenny Smith was open. Wolf tipped it in.
Little defensive confusion there. You don't see that happen very often with Virginia, but you're right, Mike. Drew Kennedy should have at least stepped out and slowed the ball handler. Instead, everyone stood around. The rotation didn't go. Everyone stood still. Joe Wolf waltzed in for the tip-in.
Richard Morgan got by Lebo, but Reed got the rebound. Kenny Smith. And Kennedy got the block, but he'll also get the foul.
Well, I'd have to say that's a pretty tough call and a pretty good defensive play by Drew Kennedy. Here, Kenny Smith with great quickness, probably the fastest guard in the league. Double pumps right here.
Whoa.
And that was a pretty good-looking block by Drew Kennedy. I'm not sure that the people who show the same replay that we see here at the Cap Center, I don't know if they should have done that.
That's what the crowd reaction was as they showed it on the tell screen.
You don't want to incite this crowd here.
Kenny Smith at the line. One more look.
Again, Drew Kennedy's right there. Well, there's a little contact, little body contact.
Got him with the chest. The crowd still doesn't like it. Of course, those are Virginia fans, and they're going to watch it in their own way, as Carolina fans will watch it in their own way. Fans are as bad as players as to whether a foul was actually committed or not. They look for Johnson to get him the ball back.
That's the place to break this press, too, right in the middle.
Drew Kennedy forced it up over Wolf, and Wolf called for the foul.
As I mentioned earlier in the first half, you really have to watch Drew Kennedy closely to appreciate him. Watch him when he gets the ball down low. He turns. Now, contact is made right here, and he still keeps his elbow straight, still keeps his eye on the basket, and follows through. You know, a lot of times that kind of contact will throw your whole rhythm off as a shooter, but Drew Kennedy is surprisingly strong inside.
Joe Wolf tried to get away with one there. He had his hands straight up, but he moved his body in under Kennedy on the way up, trying to give him a little jolt, and they caught him. 10 points for Drew Kennedy, a 5-point lead for the Cavaliers.
Kenny Smith just signaled for a passing game. Here Carolina moves, picks away, uses the picks very well to try to free someone for the easy shot.
Wolf to Lebo. And Lebo has a chance for a shot, throws up an air ball. And the foul will be on Joe Wolf. That is 3 on Joe Wolf.
And while when you watch the Carolina passing game, you don't think there's any method to that particular madness. Joe Wolf goes to the board. Jeff Lebo, recognizing he has a shot, will pull up, but Joe Wolf's detected for pushing off Richard Morgan.
Well, you're not going to see that from Lebo very often.
Not an air ball, at least.
Usually he doesn't hit the rim, just the net. That time he missed it all. Dangerous pass. Johnson has it back. Morgan for 3. What a play. They get it to Kenny Smith. Basket counts. Offensive foul. Kenny Smith as Morgan got back.
I tell you, Kenny Smith is known to be one of the fastest players in the ACC, but Richard Morgan in this particular foot race got down to the basket in good shape. Beat Kenny Smith underneath the basket, established position, and Kenny Smith had presence of mind of scoring, but Morgan drew the foul.
15:49 to go. We have a timeout with Virginia up by 3. Let's take a look at the Goodyear Inside Track to the championship. Virginia leading Carolina 47-44. We have 15:49 left in this one. Coming up about 3:50 tip-off time. Wake Forest against North Carolina State for the right to go to the title game tomorrow afternoon. There's the foul situation. Only 2 players on the court with 3 personals, Wolf and Sheehy. Sheehy to Kennedy, and Mel Kennedy scores.
Well, that's a good pressure release tactic by Virginia. Hit the high post. Carolina's out overplaying on the wings. The wingman goes back door. Mel Kennedy.
J.R. Reed with a power move inside, and Drew Kennedy will pick up the personal foul. Now he has 3.
So J.R. makes a nice move in the reception of the pass and puts it on the floor all in one motion. A nice drive. It's really a shame that the defense came over a little bit too late. We may have seen some nice dunking in there.
J.R. Reed with 10 points. He has hit 6 out of 6 from the free throw line, and this is from a young man on the season who's only shooting 63%. But as we pointed out, he's gotten so much better by the end of the season.
Well, that's one of the glories of having a player of his dimension. You know he's a freshman. You know he's just going to get better. He works hard at it. There's Dean Smith, who's working a little hard right now. You know the wheels are turning in both his and Terry's head.
Also 6 rebounds on the day for J.R. Reed, who misses there, and Mel Kennedy jerks it down. 15:18 to go in the ball game. It's a 4-point lead for Virginia. North Carolina has not led in this game. Off-balance drive by Kennedy, really forced that one. Drew Kennedy got the rebound. Lebo knocked it away, and Williams got it.
Can't bring it down underneath in that crowd. You got to keep the ball up.
Kenny Smith, offensive foul. Kenny Smith, and Sheehy stood there and took the pounding.
Well, it's something you won't see Kenny Smith do very often, but he got himself up in the air with nowhere to go. Sheehy does a great job of stepping out. A lot of players would have been content to play their man, J.R. Reed, and hope that he doesn't score.
Bad
Good shot by Mel Kennedy here. Carolina gets their hand. Watch Lebo. As soon as Andrew Kennedy brings the ball down, Lebo slips his hand underneath. Jim O'Brien, who played with me at Maryland in the 70s, was a master at that, tipping the ball out of the rebounder's hand. I tried it occasionally, but I was always
you always got the rebound. You didn't have to knock it away from anybody. Sheehy and Wolf shoving each other inside. And Sheehy, what a move! Sheehy tipped it in. Holy cow, what a move by Sheehy.
That's a sign of that confidence and composure that you spoke about at halftime, Mike. Virginia really feels as though they're in this game. Carolina's got to pick up the intensity defensively. You can't let somebody split a double team like that.
Scott Williams with a turnaround jumper. Reed tried to keep it alive, but Sheehy got it again. Here's Johnson. It's a 3-on-2. Johnson all the way.
Great decision by John Johnson. Jeff Lebo never left from underneath the basket. Johnson couldn't draw him or force him to commit, so he just took it right to the hole.
Virginia on a roll. 13:49 to go.
And I think the crowd has now decided for whom they're going to root.
And it's the guys in orange.
Well, they're the ones standing up, but if you look around, people are making a choice here. If Carolina scores, you get the other side. We'll judge.
Reed and Sheehy exchanging forearms. Wolf turnaround jump. And that was tipped in by Scott Williams, and Virginia might have gotten an assist on it.
Well, you saw Andrew Kennedy put his hands on his head in disgust, but I tell you, Virginia can't allow that to bother them. Carolina did a good job of, at least Scott Williams did, of getting his hands on the ball, but I tell you, they're still forcing the Carolina big men to take shots outside.
Mel Kennedy with a poor pass, and Scott Williams will come away with the interception. 6-point ball game, 12:57 to go. Reed against Sheehy. Sheehy is doing a classic job on defense.
Well, here's Scott Williams on the last defensive play, loses contact. Andrew Kennedy just can't hold his position. Good defense. But here, J.R. Reed makes up his mind as to where he's going. That's one of the values of being able to catch, turn your head, and look and see where your defender's playing before you make a move. That time, J.R. decided, I'm going to turn to my right, and so Sheehy anticipated it well.
Tom Sheehy has taken 3 charges in this game. Mel Kennedy. Sheehy got the loose ball. Pretty pass to Drew Kennedy. And it's up to 8. And now the officials are going to stop the action. And Terry Holland had been talking to one of the officials during the last sequence of plays. And I'm not sure they have been looking at the scoreboard as if something up there is wrong. Maybe the foul situation, the score, or the time. And now Joe Forte is going to go over and try to find out what the situation is. It shows an 8-point lead. And we'll see if they make some kind of a change on it. And they're now telling us the problem was with the clock as we see this last play.
Well, here Tom Sheehy does a good job of hustling, getting inside, and he's looking to find the open man. He recognized the crowd in there. Joe Wolf going after the ball. He's there. Williams steps up. You see 3 Carolina players in the paint. Sheehy saw that also, but he also recognized an orange shirt in the corner, and that's where the pass went.
Lenny, I would think this would be this stoppage of play would be to Virginia's advantage. They are not as deep as North Carolina. This is better than a timeout.
Well, I tell you, Virginia expended an awful lot of energy in the last five minutes or so. They've been scrambling and hustling. They've been battling the bigger, stronger Carolina players inside. So you're right, this is a chance for them to get a breather. Now, it may kind of hurt their momentum a little bit. It may slow their momentum. But again, that's what they're going to do anyway. As this game wears on, they're going to try to slow the tempo tempo to almost a standstill because they want to cut this game in half at this moment.
Now Joe Forte talking to Terry Holland over at the scorer's table, and now Dean Smith will enter your picture and try to figure out what's going on. And Terry is now telling Dean what he would like to do, and Dean is responding to that. All the meantime, Tom Sheehy is rubbing his upper left thigh. He either got a cramp or he got banged on the last play. I think he was hit by a knee from Joe Wolf when he was getting that loose ball, and we're still not sure exactly what the problem is supposed to be on the scoreboard clock over the center of the building here, over the building floor.
Well, it looks like whatever it is, if there's an error, it may be one of those correctable errors that you're allowed really to
time, yeah,
you're allowed really to rectify, provided that the change of possession doesn't occur or the next dead ball, I believe.
This is from this afternoon. Syracuse with the lead in the first half in the Big East in the Metro. Memphis State over South Carolina. A lot of controversy about whether Memphis State should be in that tournament at all to begin with, but they are, and they're winning over South Carolina. You see the second game coming up later. And once again, there's the Big East score. Syracuse leading Pittsburgh by 11. That's the second half. Georgetown will play Providence in the 4 o'clock game. Now they have taken 13 seconds off the clock, down to 12:09. It's running again. And Virginia maintains the 8-point lead. North Carolina with the basketball. And Dean Smith has not gone to his bench very much in the second half. Only for Scott Williams. Lebo forced that one up a little bit. Got the bounce.
Good follow through. Good follow through. Jeff Lebo saw his hand remain in the air long after the ball left, and it's good release.
55-49. Johnson has played under such control for Virginia.
As we mentioned at the top, he's the key. He's the man who has his hands on the ball and distributes it, controls the tempo.
And considering what an excellent defensive player Kenny Smith is, it's all that much better a performance.
Well, those are two New Yorkers right there playing in the Catholic high school leagues. I'm sure they face each other a number of times.
Mel Kennedy, baseline jumper. Williams with the rebound, and Drew Kennedy gets his 4th foul.
Well, when you talk about depth, this is where Virginia's weak spot is, right here. Mel Kennedy takes another one of those New York leaners. It looks off balance, but that's his shot. Drew Kennedy out of position, has to reach for that.
And Bill Batts is up off the Virginia bench. He'll be back as soon as we come back. There's a timeout with 11:08 left in this ball game. Virginia by 6. Back after these words from Budweiser.
This Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament game is an exclusive presentation of Raycom Sports and Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions.
It's getting down to that time that justifies buying the tickets. 11:08 to go in the game. Virginia leading North Carolina by 6. It's always fun to show up for the last 11. That's where the game is anyhow, isn't it?
It's better than the pro game, the last 2, right?
That's right. Here's the foul situation. You saw Andrew Kennedy with 4. Bill Batts is into the ball game for him. They'll go underneath to Williams.
Carolina, during that timeout, again, they probably refreshed the memories of the 5 players out there as to what their intent is, and that was to get the ball inside, put a lot of pressure on the people, the front line of Virginia. That time, Scott Williams, nice turnaround jumper.
J.R. Reed will be back in for North Carolina at the next opportunity. Sheehy downtown, just inside the 3-point line. It's a 6-point lead again.
It's so big for Sheehy to come alive here, missing Andrew Kennedy due to foul trouble right now. Virginia needs it.
Sheehy has 13 points. Wolf to Scott Williams again. Batts with a rebound. Lost it, goes down to the floor. We'll have a jump ball situation. It will go to Virginia on the possession arrow.
Now, on that last particular play, that's what I mean by getting up on Joe Wolf and forcing him to put the ball on the floor. Not only do you take away one of his strengths, and that's shooting a jump shot, but you also allow your teammates to help you because he's got to go somewhere. Here Scott Williams gets the ball inside. Nice turnaround jump shot. Watch his face now. He's into this game. He's ready to play now.
He and Batts give you a lot of emotion off the bench and on opposite sides. Kennedy caught in the trap. Sheehy. Whoa. Mel Kennedy offensive rebound. Sheehy missed that one by about 3 feet.
But defensively,
almost make a play out of that. Out of the corner, Lebo.
There's that man again, Jeff Lebo. He picks his spots.
He's as fundamentally a sound player as I've ever seen coming into a college program. 59-53. And he didn't do anything but get better last year. John Johnson, a 6-point lead. We're down to 9:08 and counting in the semifinal.
Well, there's a mismatch here. J.R. Reed is out, forced to play John Johnson. Now he's stuck in the lane. Kenny Smith and Tom Sheehy, and Virginia's looking for Sheehy.
And Johnson got it to him. Blocked by Wolf. Sheehy follows. Blocked by Reed. With the foul on Reed.
And when you talk about patience, that not only was the point guard, but it was the whole team. Sheehy called out, I've got a mismatch. He went right to the post. Johnson recognized it with Reed on him. Goes to Sheehy, who's fouled inside by J.R. Reed. But that's something that's really difficult to teach, to recognize these types of mismatches, because you can always get 2 points if you recognize them.
59-53, and Sheehy will go to the line to shoot the free throws. Johnson just had tremendous patience on that. He knew Sheehy was open. He was just looking for a way to get down there so he could get him the basketball without Reed being able to switch back on him.
Well, the first thing he did was the smartest thing. That's he drew J.R. out by backing up, getting in shooting range, not allowing J.R. to get back or to switch around. And once he drew him out and spread the floor, then they could move the ball to get to the man.
Sheehy hits one of two. Joe Wolf, another three-pointer for Joe Wolf. In the first half, he hit 2 of 3. He's hit 2 in this half and has 20 points. He's the leading scorer in the game. And those are Carolina fans that you hear right now, standing at the Capitol Center. Johnson.
Split 50-50.
Oh, it's been a great game no matter who you're rooting for. 8:10 to go. 62-56 Cavaliers. Lebo for 3. Wolf with an offensive rebound. What a play by Wolf.
Good move inside. Joe Wolf wasn't content to stand around. He spun off of that lockout by Bill Batts.
Lebo gets it to Reed and now to Wolf.
He's going to take it. Bill Batts is going to have to get out. He's going to have to forget about team defense and get out and force Joe Wolf to put it on the floor.
Joe Wolf with a heck of a game outside. There's the three-point shooting story today. Johnson in the trap. Good pass to Sheehy. And Sheehy hits it. Boy, is the intensity picked up. Here's Lebo. Got the bucket and the foul. What a streak of basketball for both teams.
Well, what happened that time, caught Virginia a little flat-footed after the bucket. They usually get back in good shape on transition, but Jeff Lebo at the top of the key leaks out. Kenny Smith does a good job, looks up as he should on the break. John Johnson attempting to make the stop, runs underneath Lebo.
Batts comes out, Drew Kennedy back in, working with 4 personal fouls. With 7:18 to go in the game, and Lebo with a chance for a 3-point play could cut the lead to 2. And Sheehy and Wolf, a little contact inside. Sheehy goes down to the floor again. 7:18 to go. It's now a 2-point game. Virginia over North Carolina. At the conclusion of our game, we hope you'll stay with us. We'll be choosing a player from each team as the Holly Farms player of the game. As you look at Terry Holland, his club up by 2, and Joe Wolf has hit 5 out of 6 3-pointers today, Len.
Well, I tell you, he's got fine form. He's a fine outside shooter, but what's happening is the person guarding him, in that case, Bill Batts, he's got to make a decision. He comes out too late. When Joe Wolf gets set, he's going to bury that jumper outside. You've got to either play him tightly from Jump Street, or you've got to play and pray that the ball doesn't go in. Play team defense and pray that the ball doesn't go in.
They are even inside, almost even in the game score, a 2-point lead. 7:06 to go in the ball game. Wake Forest and North Carolina State, our second game. They're standing by for the right to enter the final against the winner of this one. Johnson, great move to get by Smith.
Kenny Smith, John Johnson for a pick, and he used that quickness of his to get to the baseline.
Alley-oop inside. Lebo tossed it. Nobody home.
Well, Dean Smith did a pirouette and a flying split down the sideline because he thought Dave Hobson was held. That was enough.
Dick Paparo just hit Dean Smith with a technical foul.
Well,
He was saying one of his men was blocked by a moving screen. That's why they didn't get the alley-oop. And Dick Paparo listened to it about twice, and that was it.
Well, I don't think that Dick Paparo appreciated a word of advice from Dean Smith on that particular one. I don't think he saw the demonstration before that. And Coach Smith may have had a point. You know, you look at that type of play with Lebo, and you know that it's not a miscommunication. It looked almost as though it was set up, and there had to be a reason why Popson or Wolf, the guys on either side of the block, didn't get to the spot.
John Johnson hits the first technical. He has another because it was called on the coach. Got the bounce on the second one, and it's 68-62, and Virginia's basketball.
Well, there's the old axiom used by Al McGuire and some other people that you don't get technicals in the second half. So I think that this was not one of those calculated types of situations.
Mel Kennedy, trouble getting the ball in, called the timeout to avoid the turnover. We've got 6:41 left to go from the Cap Center. Virginia by 6 over North Carolina. The Goodyear Inside Track to the championship looks just like this. We have 6:41 to go in our game. Virginia leading by 6, approximately 10 minutes until 4. We'll tip it off between Wake Forest and North Carolina State in the second game. Hope you'll stay with us throughout the afternoon. One of the surprising things in this second half is that Richard Morgan, who had such a great first half for Virginia, has not scored. And I really thought that Richard Morgan was going to have a big second half to keep Virginia in it.
Well, Jeff Lebo's doing a good job. He's more or less taking Morgan out of the game. Morgan had to sit for a while because he just wasn't doing the other things that were necessary.
Here comes the trap. Morgan helps out Johnson. And Virginia has handled the trap as well as anybody I've seen all year. Sheehy. Missed the shot. Good rebound to Lebo, but then it's knocked out of bounds, and the ball will go to Virginia.
Well, Tom Sheehy got a little bit anxious, got trapped on the sideline. The only place he could go was up. Mel Kennedy was on the opposite side waiting for the rebound, but Lebo was there, did a great job of screening him off. Unfortunately, they still lost the ball.
Dean Smith has Reed, Kenny Smith, Williams. This is Andrew Kennedy with a line drive jumper. Sheehy tried to keep it alive. Got it! Oh, they called a travel on Sheehy. No basket.
Well, Tom Sheehy just demonstrated his disappointment in that call. Terry Holland had to tell him to calm down. This is not the time to let your emotions get away with you. But Virginia broke the press in fine fashion. Drew Kennedy had the shot that was open. Sheehy recovers it, and you see him come out of the crowd, but you don't watch it. You couldn't see his feet, and the referee was right there on the baseline.
Lebo driving on Johnson. Pulls up with a little jumper. Nice shot by Lebo. It's a 4-point game. 5:48 left.
Real physical shot right there. Jeff Lebo shows that he's not one-dimensional either. He knows how to dish it out.
He's the second leading scorer for North Carolina in this ballgame with 16. Wolf has 23. North Carolina cranking up the defensive pressure a little bit. 5-second call. Johnson against Kenny Smith. And Johnson upset with one of his teammates because they didn't come to him.
Well, Kenny Smith has done a great job of shadowing John Johnson the last few minutes. And when John Johnson gives up the ball, you can bet Kenny Smith is going to deny him because they know Johnson's the key to running that offense.
68-64. Morgan reached in, got a hand on it. Boy, Reed and Sheehy are working on each other. And they'll call the foul on Sheehy. Number 4 on Sheehy. I mean, they are going after it inside.
Well, it's in front of Carolina's bench, and here Sheehy's putting pressure on. The arm gets caught on top of JR's, and I believe that's where the call came. I still believe that the officials are going to allow these guys to play with their body because the game means so much, and these are some big physical guys.
Wolf from the baseline, and Joe Wolf had 25 points. The lead has been cut to 2. Mel Kennedy, Reed comes out on him. jumper. Williams with a rebound.
Virginia's moving away from their game plan. They're starting to settle for the outside shot.
Boy, J.R. Reed flattens Sheehy. And they called fouls on both, I believe.
Virginia loses on that one because Sheehy's gone. Here they're still pushing and shoving. J.R. grabs Sheehy. Sheehy falls. Now I'm not sure if I'm really not sure if Virginia should have been on the losing end of this one. J.R. grabbed and hooked Sheehy that time.
Fouls on both players for Sheehy. Number 5, he fouls out with 4:42 to go, and 16 points for J.R. Reed. It is number 3.
Again, Sheehy could have been called for actually taking the flop, falling, and causing J.R. to go down. But you saw graphically, J.R. grabbed and hooked Tom Sheehy's arm as he reached over.
Sheehy leads the ball game not only with the 16 points, but 8 rebounds. It's a 2-point game here. And one of the Cavalier leaders is gone. Reed, over pass, tipped by Wolf. Rebound to Drew Kennedy.
A lot of pressure on Bill Batts, who replaces Tom Sheehy. Batts isn't going to be looked upon to score, but he's going to have to really play big inside, spread out, play good defense, do some of the things that are necessary for a big guy on that front line.
Mel Kennedy now with Reed on, forced it up again, and Reed got the rebound. Carolina with a chance to tie or take the lead. They're down by 2. Reed wants the ball, now being guarded by Batts. Lebo.
Virginia's tired. Jeff Lebo made a nice little pump fake, drove baseline, but the weak side defense was very slow getting there, and when they did, they didn't get there with any intensity. Drew Kennedy was just happy to have gotten to that spot rather than contest that shot by Lebo. And Drew Kennedy does have 4 fouls, so he may have a point in not contesting it, but he was still more content with just getting it.
Mel Kennedy basket counts, and he's fouled.
And the New York leaner finally yielded some profits here.
Boy, it is a funny-looking shot, especially when you're leaning into somebody.
And I'll be honest, I think that when Mel Kennedy does lean, when he makes contact, he's better off. This is the first time he's made contact in a while. The shot is gone. Prior to that, he'd been taking these leaning shots with no contact.
Nobody
in front of
there.
him, and the ball's been errant.
Now, Scott Williams looked like he had pretty decent position in there.
And we're going to take a look again at the Sheehy-Reed altercation that resulted in Sheehy's fouling out. Now here, J.R. attempts to go across the line. Clearly, you see Tom Sheehy maybe stick his leg out, but you clearly see J.R.'s arm hook Tom Sheehy. So it was a good call by the officials. It's just a shame it worked out to Virginia's detriment.
Mel Kennedy could not hit the 3-point play. North Carolina has not led in this ball game. They were tied at 12, tied at 68. Alley-oop inside to Reed. They're tied at 70.
Well, that was a lost assignment right there, and good recognition by Kenny Smith.
Reed has 13. Leading scorer for North Carolina continues to be Joe Wolf with 25. Leading scorer for Virginia is Tom Sheehy. He was fouled out of the ball game. Johnson trying to get by Kenny Smith. Lost it for a second. Missed it. Carolina with 2:38 left. The chance to take their first lead of the game. Lebo.
Richard Morgan leaving his feet. Actually being too far away from Jeff Lebo and forced to try to scramble to recover. And Terry Holland wants to talk about it.
Terry Holland has to talk about it now with only 2:20 left. His team is behind for the first time in the game. 72-70. North Carolina over Virginia. Back in a moment. 2:20 left in the first semifinal of the ACC tournament. North Carolina with its first lead in the ball game, 72-70. And Len Elmore, maybe that technical really spurred up the Heels.
Well, it takes a big guy to admit. I didn't think that that was a calculated technical by Dean Smith, and I'm sure his emotion got carried away with him. But it has worked to the advantage of Carolina. They've benefited from the period of time 10 points to 2.
Big possession for Virginia right here. Nice touch pass inside the Bats wall.
Tough call. Virginia players all day have been faking, pump faking up, getting Carolina players off their feet. That time Bats' call. Let's watch his feet. I'm not so sure about that, but the call was made.
And now we're down to 2:04. Carolina's basketball, they're up by 2.
And you know what? Terry Holland wasn't so sure about that one either.
Oh, Terry Holland was positive. But the other way. Lebo tried to dump it inside, knocked away. Here comes Johnson on the run. Tried to get by Lebo in great defensive position, wouldn't let him do it.
Carolina got back well.
Drew Kennedy ties it at 72 with 1:36 left. That is the game clock in the corner of your screen.
JR starts outside, Mike. I'm sorry, you're going to watch him go to the block. He's the one that they're looking for.
Kenny Smith guarded by Morgan. Wolf for 3. He had hit 5 of 6 of them. And now Virginia in the driver's seat in a tie ball game.
Well, this is where the coaches of the Virginia staff wanted to get Carolina. They feel they get them in a tight game in the last 2 or 3 minutes, that they've got a great chance to win. And one of the reasons is maybe those shots that fall early in the game don't fall as often when the game gets tight on the line and time is running down.
We'll find out in a hurry, won't we? Shot clock is at 16 seconds. That is the game clock you're seeing. Shot clock now at 11. Johnson, tough shot, got it off to Drew Kennedy. Basket won't go, but he did get the foul on J.R. Reed. He created the contact.
JR was in good defensive position that time. Here, John Johnson, I mean, he was fortunate to get that ball off without being called for a walk. JR in good position. The problem was he had his left hand resting on Drew Kennedy's back, and I think that allowed Kennedy to create the contact.
Andrew Kennedy is 2 for 2 from the free throw line. 75% shooter. Big shot. 38 seconds to go in this game right now, tied at 72. Missed them both. Bill Bats got the rebound. And now Virginia can hold for the last shot. Holy cow. Do you believe that? 2 missed free throws and they turned it over. Backcourt violation. Oh my goodness.
Well, I tell you, Mike, that time Jeff Lebo has to be credited with some great pressure, keeping Johnson away from the ball. But the other problem is Mel Kennedy, rather than putting it on the floor, if he had his dribble, and during that sequence, I'll have to be honest, I'm not sure whether he put it on the floor or not, but if he had his dribble, he should have been the one to dribble away from that backcourt line. That's the last place you want to pick the ball up and lose your dribble a foot or 2 in front of the backcourt line.
We'll talk about a sequence of events. Andrew Kennedy goes to the line in a tie ball game with a 1-and-1 free throw. He's a 75% free throw shooter, and the 2 for 2 in this game. Misses the first, misses the second. Bill Bats just hustling as hard as he can inside. Gets the rebound. It looks like the Cavaliers can hold for the last shot. Chance to win the game, go to the championship game. And then a simple thing such as just being able to hold on to it, and they come out and knock the ball in the backcourt. Now, if Lebo had touched the ball, they can take it across the center court line in the backcourt. It's not a violation.
But Virginia with 2 timeouts, Mel Kennedy not cognizant of how many timeouts his team had the opportunity to call it. But, you know, he had been burned by that once earlier in the season. He called a timeout when Virginia didn't have one, and consequently a technical was awarded, and they lost the game because of that.
Right. So North Carolina now in the driver's seat. That is the game clock ticking away. The shot clock, of course, is off. And they are just holding it for the last shot. Who would you want to take it?
Well, I tell you, they're going to try to get a shooter on the side of one of these big guys, Wolf and Reed, particularly Kenny Smith.
It's stopped. 1 second to go.
And he is not the guy that you want to shoot the ball.
But he was the man who was open. They got him the ball. He took it, and there's 1 second left.
Kenny Smith may have over-penetrated here. Here he gets inside, has no place to go. 3 orange shirts around him. Williams is open, but that's not the side that you want to go to. You want to go to the side of a shooter.
This is how the coaches viewed that last shot. There is relief on the right side of your screen, I'll tell you that, whether you can see it visibly or not.
But
Now we'll go 5 minutes of overtime.
Terry Holland's not one of those guys that really demonstrates his emotion, but you know he's churning on the inside.
You bet. Each team will get, assuming we do go overtime with 1 second left, which is probably your basic good assumption.
A lot of people like to point out that not actually 1 second, because it shows up there it's less than 1 second. The clock ticks and stops. You got less than a second to shoot it.
In college basketball, the game is not over until double zeros are registered and the horn sounds. If you have a double zero up there, you may have some time left on the clock. If the horn is not sounded, it's not over. You have to expect Virginia to try one of those long passes. Length of the court, and Reed intercepts. Tries to fire it back the other way, and we definitely will go overtime here in the first semifinal. (72-72). Each team will get an additional timeout in the overtime, so that will give Virginia 2. North Carolina has socked its away. The Tar Heels will have 4 in the overtime.
Well, you look at the score in the 70s. It's not the place that Virginia is real comfortable with, especially when they're playing a team like Carolina. But right now the score is 0-0 going into overtime, and Virginia can go back to their game plan and they can be pretty comfortable. Carolina, on the other hand, recognizing that they don't have the foul trouble that Virginia has, they can start pounding the ball inside.
Right now with overtime and a 72-72 tie, let's go over to Paul Cameron. Paul?
Thanks, guys. Tom Sheehy is fouled out of this game. How about the overtime, Lefty?
Well, I think the tip-off is very important. Whoever gets this tip is going to be very important if they can come down and score and get the momentum going forward.
Justin, as an example, last night's NC State game, they controlled the tip, controlled the overtime. All right, Mike.
5 minutes on the scoreboard overhead here at the Capitol Center. That's the amount of time you get for the overtime. Had so many overtimes done this year, I'm starting to say first overtime like it's commonplace. There's the score by half. Overtime records this year: North Carolina 2-0, Virginia 0-2. One of those games against each other when North Carolina beat Virginia by 1 in overtime. That was at Chapel Hill. Bats will jump center against Popson. And Andrew Kennedy will control to Morgan. Richard Morgan did not score in the second half after getting 12 points in the first. Sheehy has been fouled out of the ballgame, so maybe Morgan needs to join the Kennedys for a couple of points if Virginia is going to win.
I'll tell you, I look for Virginia right now to go back to its game plan, except they can't go into Sheehy, so they're going to have to really work their perimeter guys.
Tough pass to Andrew Kennedy, and he banked it home. Johnson did everything but get down on his belly to get him that ball.
Good distributor, John Johnson.
Kenny Smith. This is Reed. Bats just backs off him. He's not Joe Wolf yet. He's not going to take the 20-footer. Hobson. Lebo will fire from anywhere. Missed the shot. Bats with a rebound.
And we talked about the pressure that was going to come upon Bill Batts, and he's handled it extremely well.
John Johnson guarded by Smith. They're trying to get the ball to Kennedy, and Reed is fronting him. Here's Lebo with the steal. Morgan couldn't stop it, and he fouled him on the way in.
Well, John Johnson waited until overtime before he really picked up the ball a little too early. Here, he just can't get it to Richard Morgan. It's a poor angle. Richard Morgan has to take some of the blame as well. Jeff Levo's overplaying. Go back door. Here you see Richard Morgan come into the play. He's not getting it. You don't go above the line of the ball. There's an imaginary line that goes across the court between the ball and you. If you step above the line of the ball, you're throwing it back. The guy overplaying you has a good advantage to cut off the angle. Richard Morgan should have gone back door and allowed Johnson to bounce it into him. That whole top section around the key was clear.
North Carolina as a team, 12 of 14. Lebo is almost automatic free throw. Now 2 of 2. And he can tie it up with this one. 3:50 to go in overtime. Len Elmore and Mike Patrick, glad to have you with us on a Saturday afternoon from the Capitol Center. It's been a beautiful ball game to watch. 21 points, make it 22 for Lebo. Here comes the trap on Johnson. That pass was tipped. Lebo with the interception. And now he's trapped and fouled by Richard Morgan.
And again, Virginia's waited until overtime before they start turning the ball over with a little bit of regularity. Carolina surprised Virginia that time, sending big Scott Williams there, and it's very difficult for Johnny Johnson to see over that trap. I'm surprised Johnson, as he was backing up, didn't decide to cross over and go around Williams' side. Williams is not going to be able to get down and handle him, and as you back up, you give yourself more room to get around. I remember John Lucasen playing against Carolina. He was one of the masters. I remember Skip Brown, who played for Wake Forest back in the 70s. These guys were quick enough, as John Johnson is, to back up and go around the slowest guy's side. In that case, it was Scott Williams.
Lebo misses the front end of a 1-and-1. One of the best free throw shooters in the ACC, if not the country.
And it's money time, and even the best. Coach Giselle said he's seen Larry Bird miss a few. I don't know what game he was watching, but it does, it does occur.
Mel Kennedy gives Virginia a 2-point lead, 76-74. Well, what a ball game this has been. Hobson. Scott Williams, that was blocked by Batts.
Great job inside. Bill Batts waited until Scott Williams committed himself. Scott Williams not pump faking, went straight up. Batts was ready for him.
Kennedy, guarded by Williams. Mel Kennedy.
It's a mismatch with Andrew Kennedy. I'm surprised he's not putting it on the floor, forcing Williams to play him.
Andrew hits a big, big shot. He has 18 points. It's a 4-point lead for Virginia.
Great concentration by Kennedy that time.
Hobson looked inside. There was nobody on his side of the court. Tried to drive. Kenny Smith back to Lebo. Back to Smith. He missed the shot, but he'll get the foul. What a pretty play between Smith and Lebo. Great communication.
Fine give and go here. Kenny Smith, once he gave up the ball, took off. He recognized his defender had turned his head. Here the ball goes in. Kenny Smith doesn't have a shot. His defender's out of position. Smith goes right to the basket. Lebo with a smart pass inside. But I tell you, Batts came across as the big guy should and probably prevented a 3-point play by keeping that ball from going in.
Batts commits his second personal foul, and Kenny Smith, another automatic free throw shooter, goes to the line, 80%. But as we said last night, 80% means you miss occasionally, and he did.
And Mike, I'll tell you something. On this end of the court, it's a little easier to see as you're watching both teams, but a lot of the Carolina players are now not looking at the basket. They're getting the ball, and they're content with moving it around, but they're not looking.
Kenny Smith missed both free throws, but J.R. Reed came through with a huge rebound and put it in. Reed has 15 points, and it's a 2-point game again.
That ball came off right in front of the rim. There probably isn't any excuse for J.R. Reed to get that close except a missed block-out assignment. This is not the time for those kind of lapses.
Every possession becomes critical. Drew Kennedy being fronted by Williams. Williams is a heck of a defender.
Carolina post defenders are now fronting the post as the ball goes to the wing area.
Shot clock is down to 10 as John Johnson drives Reed with a rebound.
Had no choice. That time John Johnson was trapped with the ball, did the only thing he could, and that was go to the hoop and hope for a foul.
Wolf outside. Here's a whistle. And we've got to stoppage of play because Bill Batts checking to see if he's bleeding, and he got whacked in the nose. And we'll check on him when we come back. 1:23 to go in overtime. Virginia leads North Carolina by 2. The Goodyear Inside Track to the championship. We're still in the first game in overtime. Virginia by 2. Coming up later this afternoon, Wake Forest and North Carolina State. They're not going to tip it off at 3:50 now. It'll be a little past 4 at least. 1:23 left in this one. There's the field goal shooting in overtime. Free throw shooting. North Carolina is the only team that's had a chance, and uncharacteristically have made only 2 of 5.
I tell you, after this particular timeout, I bet Carolina recognizes that Bill Batts getting hit in the nose, maybe gun shy. They're going to really look for J.R. Reed. J.R. starting out high now against his passing game, but you can bet he's going to go to the opposite block, look for the lob, but try to get the ball in the post, and there they are looking for him right now.
Perfect call, Landon. He tried to pass it to Scott Williams, who didn't see it. And now Virginia, with 1 minute to go in the ball game and a 2-point lead, has the advantage.
Well, right now, with Mel Kennedy handling the ball out front, I'm really surprised that he didn't hold on to it a little longer. Force J.R. to come on outside and play.
John Johnson being denied the ball by Lebo. Now he's got it. Shot clock at 22, game clock at 40. So Virginia cannot hold the ball.
Here's the play, the matchup that you want. Right now, they just switched. Now you got a good one. You got John Johnson with J.R. Reed guarding him. There won't be any close guarding. They're going to try and double him.
Shot clock is at 6. Johnson's got to do something with it. He's got Reed all over him. Forced it. And it's short. North Carolina, with 18 seconds to go, has a chance to tie or win it. They're down by 2. No timeout. Kenny Smith. Arrow will give it to North Carolina, and the Virginia bench really upset about that call. They wanted the foul.
And I tell you, that was another tough call. The officials are doing a great job, but Batts getting tied up here. Great defense inside. Kenny Smith has a double pump. Batts in good position, pulls it down strong. He gets smacked one time. He's in a headlock, and it's a jump ball.
This is Dean Smith's reaction. As they take the last shot, Kenny Smith goes into the lane, and then you'll see it to the tie-up. And Terry Holland the same. I tell you, the emotion on the sideline, these guys have to leave the Capitol Center drained after every game. I know I do.
Well, I tell you something, there's a lot to be said also about taking the basket of your choice. This is one of the aspects of the home court advantage that a lot of people don't recognize, and it's purely psychological. But when you have your offense in front of your bench in the second half, or when the game is tight, then, you know, it's just a psychological sway sometimes. Your players play harder. The officials hear you and your complaints. You ask them to watch for certain things, and sometimes you reap some benefits.
Kenny Smith trying to inbound, gets it in. Ranzino Smith, he stepped on the baseline. Virginia's basketball with 7 seconds left. What a play.
Big mistake by Virginia, though, throwing their hands up in triumph. 5 seconds left. There's an awful lot of time. Good defense by Virginia. The ball hits inbounds. If you watch, the ball bounce inbounds.
Out of bounds.
I mean, out of bounds.
Yeah.
The ball bounced out of bounds before the player was there. The first bounce of the ball, the first time the ball hits the floor, has to be out of bounds, has to be inbounds. Excuse me.
Oh, it's a great call by the official. I mean, you're not looking for something like that. How often does that happen? About once every 6 months or something?
Well, that's first of all, that's great training. You got to credit not only the officials who do it week after week and still watch every nuance, watch every movement of the ball, take nothing for granted, but also the people that train them and constantly harp on the little things.
Now what happens, Len, with 7 seconds left? Virginia's first key is just to get it in bounds, as North Carolina could not do.
Well, first of all, you're going to get some ball handlers in there, maybe one big man, so that you may possibly throw the ball up in the air if you have to throw over the defense. But you get ball handlers shooters in, you get people who can shoot the free throws. In Virginia's case, they've got the people out there. They didn't have to make any changes. They didn't keep Bill Batts away from the play so that if necessary, he can run in to receive a high pass.
Dean Smith has called a timeout once he saw the way the University of Virginia had lined up. Cavaliers with a 2-point lead. 7 seconds to go. Len, we pointed out early in the telecast, Virginia in this building, including ACC tournament games, is 8-1. This would be 9 out of 10 on a court that's not their own. That's not too bad.
Well, I tell you, you figured that the law of probability would catch up to them sometime, particularly with a team of the stature of a Carolina. But these Cavaliers came to play. There's no two ways about it.
Let's run down some of the scoring for you in this ball game. Andrew Kennedy with 18 points. Sheehy had 16. Sheehy fouled out about an hour ago with 4:42 to go in regulation. Mel Kennedy with a dozen. Morgan with 12, all in the first half. John Johnson with 14 points and a slew of assists. Bill Batts off the bench with 6. For North Carolina, Wolf with 25. Lebo 22. Reed 15. Those are the only 3 players in double figures. Kenny Smith only has 6 points on the day. And Dave Popson, who had a career-high 23 yesterday, has 4 this afternoon.
But Drew Kennedy can't afford to throw the ball short.
And he calls the timeout because he couldn't get it in.
Mel Kennedy was wide open long. He took off on a fly pattern. The Carolina players elected to stay in the backcourt. Mel Kennedy was wide open, and he signaled to Drew Kennedy, but Drew Kennedy couldn't see him.
And Virginia is now out of timeouts. The situation that they had earlier in the season where they called a timeout after they made a basket, it was a timeout they did not have, and that is a technical, and it cost them the ball game. It was a heartbreaking time for them. I know Mel Kennedy and Drew Kennedy were both back there, and you better believe they're aware now that there are no timeouts for the Cavaliers.
Well, right now, that was a pretty valuable burn of a timeout. As you say, they have none, but also it wasn't necessary. Drew Kennedy, obviously in a human error, just couldn't see Mel Kennedy in the front court wide open. But that play won't happen again because Carolina now can make the adjustment.
Right. Virginia has to get it in, and you have to presume that North Carolina will foul immediately. Bucknall in the ball game for the Tar Heels. Get their best defensive players on the floor. Morgan inbounds to Johnson. Kenny Smith trying to beat it to it. He got it, calls time, and only 1 second went off the clock. 1 second.
Well, we mentioned at the top of the show and early on during this game that Kenny Smith is one of the fastest guys in this league, if not the fastest. You got the clock in the bottom right-hand corner. Here's the foot race.
It will start when it's touched. Should be 6. Should be down to about 4 seconds, I believe, and there is Dean Smith watching it.
Well, we don't know if that was really in I guess, live type of fashion on that tape.
No, it was slow motion, so we can't tell, but it looked like about 3 seconds would have gone off the clock. He's looking up at the clock and checking. Well, he has that wry smile like that took 1 second.
Well, he also gave the signal that John Johnson was held. Now, John Johnson is a pretty quick fella himself. He had about a 2-step lead on Kenny Smith, and Smith overtook him at the ball.
So there are now 6 seconds to go, and Virginia was unable twice to get the ball in bounds. Once they had to call a timeout. The second time, they threw it away, and North Carolina has yet another chance.
Well, it's important right now for Virginia not to foul. Carolina's got to get a good shot. Virginia can't foul.
Scott Williams. Holy cow.
It's funny, Dean Smith is asking where's the foul on Lebo, but I tell you what, he doesn't want them to turn their clock back.
Absolutely unbelievable. That had to be a 15-foot jump hook shot from the baseline by a freshman at the buzzer in overtime. Are you kidding?
Well, if you remember at the end of regulation, it was Scott Williams with the wide open jumper who shot an air ball. It shows you what a little experience can do for you.
Oh, Lebo was fouled.
This time he had ice water in his veins. Lebo was fouled in front of the bench.
Watch the coaches again on this last shot. And Lebo was definitely hacked on the arm. Carolina got a break there, or did not get a break, but they got the break when Williams hit the jump hook. Despair turns to joy in about the blink of an eyelash.
Well, you can almost hear Dean say, look, a foul. Oh, great shot.
Exactly. So we will go to double overtime. Marty Brenneman, our colleague, standing by for the second game. We might want to get Marty in here. My voice is just about hit. I was in trouble when we got here this morning. But I think in a double overtime in this tournament, you're going to have to drag me out of here. Reed got the ball for North Carolina, and Kenny Smith will bring it down. What a ball game.
Wonder if Coach Giselle put his poles, fishing poles back in his car.
Yeah, I don't think you want to be out looking for something when we've got this game. Knocked away by Batts. Boy, you have to be impressed by Bill Batts.
Well, he's got a lot of desire, and as I said, he's not backing down from anyone. Here he loses contact with JR, steps in front to deflect that pass. If he misses that, JR dunks.
Inbounded to Williams. We're tied at 78 in the second overtime. Reed kicked it off to Wolf. One of the few shots he's missed all day.
Well, that time he actually pulled the trigger on that. He pulled it back a little bit. The follow-through is not the same as it was maybe in regulation.
Morgan, who has not scored since the first half, gets it to Batts. Oh, dangerous pass to Kennedy. Threw it right through the arm of J.R. Reed. Kennedy inside to Andrew. Kennedy saved it, but Williams has it.
Disconcerted Virginia offense here. This is not the time for a breakdown.
Lebo and Wolf both passed up outside the sides there. Then Wolf will take one. Did not get the bounce. Batts kept it alive and tipped it out to one of his teammates. 3:45 left in the second overtime.
Talk about dodging some bullets. These guys have been wearing bulletproof vests because they've been bouncing off, and it's still those survivors here.
Johnson, Mel Kennedy, Richard Morgan. First point since the first half.
And you know, that's a benefit twofold for Virginia. Mel Kennedy passed up a good shot, knowing that he could probably hit someone with a better shot, although Richard Morgan was further away, but it also gets Morgan in the game because they need him. He's been real quiet.
Reed almost had it knocked away. Kenny Smith, good job to save it. Morgan's done a good job on Kenny Smith, who only has 6 points today. John Johnson got a piece of that one. Wolf forces it out and hit it. We're tied at 80. Joe Wolf, great game. 27 points this afternoon. This is fun, isn't it, Lynn? Hey, huh?
Particularly when you don't have to play and you only have to watch.
When we're sitting here, we got free seats. Tough to beat.
Did somebody say making a ton of money? No. Enjoying this.
That's definitely not true. But we got John Mandry, our statistician, who sits here and tells us how many points everybody had. 2:25 to go in the second overtime. Tied at 80. This is what college basketball is at its best. Morgan. Didn't get the roll. Reed kept it alive, and Williams got it.
A lot of contact under there when Morgan's looking for picks. Lebo's grabbing, Morgan's pushing. They're guarding each other on the other end right now.
We are reaching the 2-minute mark in the second overtime. Kenny Smith, nice move to get free. Jumper won't go, though. Scott Williams has 6 points. That was maybe the biggest bucket of his career.
Williams held his position on that, really grabbed the rebound, went up strong, didn't bring it down, went right back up with it.
John Johnson, and now Carolina goes zone.
Taking the lead, Carolina figures they change the look, slow down that Virginia momentum a little bit.
Johnson from long range, missed it. Wolf for the rebound and saved it.
John Johnson is not an outside shooter, and he's still been forced to have to take that long shot. It's hurt Virginia on numerous really crucial occasions.
Cavaliers look tired. Understandably. Reach in, knocked away by Morgan. They've gotten away with one. Johnson. 21 seconds in double overtime. Virginia down by 2. Andrew Kennedy wants the ball. Williams out on him. Williams gasping for air. They've all got to be tired. Shot clock at 21. And we've got a holding foul inside on Scott Williams, his 4th. With 35 seconds left to go in the ball game. The shot clock is now off.
Here's the play that put Carolina ahead. Kenny Smith making a nice little fake to the right and goes left. Scott Williams, again, holds his position, as I said, goes right up, doesn't put the ball on the floor, finds where the basket is, uses that board very well.
Andrew Kennedy, 2 out of 4. He missed his last 2 shots. These are big ones. It's a 1-point game. He will get 1 more shot. And we have 35 seconds to go in double overtime. Got that one. Andrew Kennedy, 20 points, tied at 82, and now North Carolina will try to hold for the last shot. Again. Morgan coming out on Smith. That is the game clock in the corner of your screen. There is no shot clock. It's off.
At some point in time, I would hope that the Virginia defenders, if they're awake, will recognize that Kenny Smith shouldn't get the ball back. Richard Morgan lets Kenny Smith get it back, though. At this point in time, that's the man who you want to have the
hit it. There's a timeout to the Cavaliers, but there's only 2 seconds left.
Clock is registered 1, and I know they called it when there were 3.
And Carolina may have gotten the break of the tournament in the first overtime.
Well, this is what I meant. At some point in time, you don't want Kenny Smith to get the ball back. Richard Morgan should have been cognizant of that fact, but Kenny Smith got free, and that's the man you want to have his hands on the ball. He creates so many things. Terry's not very happy with the way the clock was run down. They call a timeout, and it really looked like it had just left 3 and gone to 2. Terry's a little upset. Dean says, yeah, that's a good play. Good job, timekeeper.
Well, Virginia has gotten a bad break, I think, on the clock on 2 occasions. One, when they tried to inbound the ball and went to the other end of the court, it looked like the clock did not start in time and cost them a couple of seconds. North Carolina tied it at the buzzer in that situation, and here, after North Carolina's gone ahead, I agreed with what you said, that the timeout was signaled for by the official just as the clock went from 3 to 2, but it continued to go to 1, and now Virginia is in a lot of trouble. 1 second, they've got to go 94 feet and score on top of it.
Well, you never say never, but with Scott Williams contesting Mel Kennedy's pass, it's going to take, obviously, the miracle.
Mel Kennedy tries the length of the court pass. Touched. Goes out of bounds. No time leaves the clock in North Carolina. All they have to do is inbound it, and Dean Smith wants a timeout to discuss what they're going to do. Virginia has no timeouts left, and not much hope either. Interesting, looking ahead to the second game, Lenny. Talking to some Wake Forest people early, and somebody jokingly asked them if they were ready to play Virginia in the championship game for the right to go to the NCAA, and they said, hey, we'd rather play North Carolina. We do better against Carolina than we do them, and it looks like Wake Forest, and there's one of the Virginia fans, and we know how they are suffering right now because their team has played its heart out. You have to feel so sorry for Tom Sheehy. He fouled out so long ago, 4:42 to go in regulation.
And the play that he fouled out on was seemingly such a waste, but it had to be called because there were fouls committed. And I'll tell you what, from someone who knows, this is a shame that there has to be a loser in a game like this.
Now, you got that right. I mean, both of them. Well, let's look at it this way. It's not over yet. All Virginia has to do is steal the inbounds pass and score in 1 second. It will not happen. North Carolina dodges another huge Cavalier bullet and wins in the semifinals of the tournament, 84-82. The Tar Heels will advance to the final game of the ACC again. It's a tournament they have not won since 1982, but they will be favored tomorrow going in against either Wake Forest or North Carolina State. Our Holly Farms players of the game. Andrew Kennedy for Virginia, 20 points and 7 rebounds. And for North Carolina, a career-high 27 points for Joe Wolf and 4 rebounds. Holly Farms will contribute $1,000 to the Atlantic Coast Conference to be distributed among the member institutions under a conference-approved plan. The celebration goes on the Capitol Center floor. The rightfully happy North Carolina Tar Heel fans have seen their club win a giant ball game that pushes them into the final.